Start right on time. Okay, so I have the honor to open this meeting. So my name is Markus Wartenberg. I'm the chair of Sarcoma Patients Euronet and also the co-chair of the German organization Deutsche Sarkom-Stiftung. And please, next slide. We are really pleased that there is such a great interest into this meeting. And you already have mentioned this before we started the meeting. It is really sad that we are not able to meet in person in Essen. So when we planned the meeting, I think it was around about 1 year ago, we thought about 100 participants in Essen and do it as a hybrid meeting. But now, unfortunately, we have to do it as an online meeting. But we have 330 registrations from around the world, and I think that's really fantastic to see the interest in such an important topic. We already have 9 main sessions, and we have 55 presenters with very, very interesting and very good presentations. So we are really looking forward to very interesting 2 days. So next slide, please. And it's really my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the initiators and the supporters of this meeting, mainly from Sarcoma Patients Unit, but also the German Sarcoma Foundation, but also the West German Cancer Center and the Ewing community. Next slide, please. So Sarcoma Patients Euronet, maybe to just give you a taste about the organization. This is the International Sarcoma Patient Community. Next slide, please. And we founded the organization in April 2009 by a few national organizations. In the meantime, we are really a strong network of 55 patient advocacy groups around the world. It's an organization, a network for organizations. And our main philosophy or credo is really act in partnership with the leading clinical sarcoma experts, with researchers, healthcare industry, and other stakeholders. And what had been the main goals to establish or to found this network? It is clear we want to improve the situation of our sarcoma patients globally. We also want to have one audible voice that is internationally heard and that we are really able to be internationally involved. But also we want to expand the network and we want to strengthen our members and help each other within this network. Next slide, please. So we developed different strategic objectives. So one is about identifying the needs and finding solutions, but also we are totally convinced that sarcomas should be treated in so-called expert centers or in multidisciplinary sarcoma expert care. We are also very much engaged in early involvement in clinical research, but also we want to have a strong patient's voice or global voice. And we are currently in a new process to think about these strategic objectives and also expand the strategic objectives. And one of our new objectives will be that we want to be more involved in the future into bone cancers, definitely. Next slide, please. And this also means we have done a lot of collaboration and networking during the last 12, 13 years. And we are going to have more engagement and more networking and collaborations during the next years. By, as I mentioned before, try to improve the situation for our patients. Next slide, please. This is the team. So we have an international board. So we have elected board members. We have honorary board members. We also have appointed board members and we have a staff. And this is really a wonderful team from around the world, working really close together. And as I mentioned before, what really unites and drives us is the need, the passion, a real passion to achieve necessary changes for our patients, but also we have really a great joy in working internationally or collaborate internationally. And so this is a fantastic way forward and really great people and working together and drive our agenda forward. Next slide, please. Then I have just to switch my head from a Sarcoma Patients Euronet, a global organization, to our German organization. And this is the Deutsche Sarkom-Stiftung, means the German Sarcoma Foundation. And the base for the German Sarcoma Foundation had been a strong patient organization in Germany since 2003. That was Das Lebenshaus. And we took care of GIST and sarcoma patients. But also another important column of this new development was the close collaboration and engaged collaboration between patient advocates and our sarcoma experts from the very early beginning. Next slide, please. So we formed now in October 2019 one new organization, something like an umbrella organization, where patients and experts are fighting sarcomas together under one umbrella in one organization. We developed public statutes for the foundation. We also got the status of a non-profit organization. We put some founding capital into the organization of around about 1.5 million euros. And this is not coming from public money or from pharmaceutical industry. This is money that is coming from patients and from medical experts. We also formed a board of directors and a board of trustees and a small team of employees. And we started our work in early 2020. Next slide, please. This is the board, and you will recognize some of the usual suspects who are really active in the field of sarcomas, also on an international level. Next slide, please. And we also defined 6 main fields of action. So one is about sarcoma research. The second field is about patient-centered care structure. So we are calling about sarcoma centers, a network of sarcoma centers. We try to engage in accuracy of diagnosis and quality of treatment. The fourth area is knowledge transfer, means education and training, connected with the question, where are the experts of tomorrow? So we need to do something for the next generation of sarcoma experts. Then patient support, how can we support and inform our patients? And sarcoma awareness. These are the 6 fields of action. Next slide, please. And during the last 2 years, we have done a lot of work in the section of patient support. So we are currently serving around about 3,300 patients, and we are doing around about 500 personal consultations per year to the patients. We developed a huge number of information and communication materials, online and offline. We have a very, very clear and good communication strategy when it comes to online strategy. For example, we did during the last 2 years, 34 online patient seminars with 2,000 live participants, but also 20,000 YouTube users after the meeting. We did a relaunch and an expansion of our regional groups in Germany. And we are also, as a German Sarcoma Foundation, as a patient part of the German Sarcoma Foundation, we are more and more politically involved in Germany, specifically in the field of patient involvement and cancer research. Next part. And then we also have the section of medical community. And this means we have a very close collaboration with our German study group, means the GISG. We are doing a lot of information and support for more than 600 sarcoma experts and those who are really interested in sarcomas. We founded a German sarcoma conference. This is a 3-day conference, and we did this during the last 10 years, every year in Berlin. This is a fantastic meeting with 200 people, and we integrated this into our Sarcoma Foundation this year. And we just have had our meeting 2 weeks ago here in Berlin with a fantastic meeting. We also did several online symposia on topics that are really important for the community. We just do a lot of preparations for the collaborative network with all sarcoma centers here in Germany. And we just launched 5 working groups for unmet medical needs and necessary changes. And one of these working groups will deal with bone cancers in the future. That means, as I mentioned before, bone cancers will be in high interest for Sarcoma Patients Euronet on an international level, but also will be in high interest for our German organization. Next slide. So this was just a brief introduction of the 2 organizations. And again, it's really my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of these organizations. And next slide, please. And many thanks also to our sponsor partners. You know that these kind of meetings, although this is just an online meeting, there's a lot of engagement and a lot of investment behind these kind of meetings. So thank you very much for these companies for supporting us without having any influence into the program of the meeting. I think that's very important. Next slide. And I also want to thank our colleagues from the West German Cancer Center with Uta and her colleagues Andreas and Julia, and also our team here really for their contribution and for this fantastic collaboration in setting up this meeting and running the meeting. So thank you for this. Next slide. And with this, it's my really great pleasure to hand over to Uta. And Uta, thank you very much for all your engagement and really for this fantastic collaboration. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Marcus, and thanks to SPAN and German Sarcoma Foundation for having this meeting together. And I would like to welcome all patients, all parents, all patients advocates, and all dear colleagues and friends I've seen in the screen and chat. Really hundreds of very known faces and names, and it's really too bad that we cannot have an in-person meeting. However, we are here together and we will celebrate 100 years Ewing sarcoma, and the title we have chosen was Learnings from the Past and Challenges for the Future. The cancer man Ewing, and you see here the quite well-known Time magazine title picture. James Ewing described the endothelia of the bone, which was later changed to Ewing sarcoma in 1921. I will not go into more detail in this because we will have in a few minutes a fantastic talk by fantastic three people who will guide us through a journey in Ewing sarcoma history. And James Ewing was really a remarkable person and a great visionary in his days, and the founder of the modern multidisciplinary cancer care. And this is also why, like 100 years, also celebrating him as a person with all what he did is worth doing. So we have like 100 years Ewing sarcoma research. We have a lot of achievements, and we will hear a lot about this in the next few days. And we also have still some miles to go, which will be discussed. Next slide. I also like to thank our teams, as Marcus already did, and here are the faces behind the team who helped organizing all this. So big thanks again. Next. Yeah, and this is like the faces of the 55 speakers we will have in the next days, and I'm very much looking forward to a highly interesting meeting. And we have scientists, we have physicians, we have patient advocates, we have young people and fairly young people. So I think it really is an example of the very lively sarcoma community and the overarching people who are interested in this disease. Next slide. So day one, as we said, we will hear something about Ewing sarcoma history. Then we will hear something about the past clinical trials. Next slide. Then we have a big package of basic and translational research and new studies on relapse in Ewing sarcoma. Next slide. And on day two, we really focusing on the patient voices who are already also in day one, and on local treatment option, on different ages of Ewing sarcoma, so also toddlers and elderly. And next slide. And last not least, what can we do to support our patients with sports therapy, quality of life, and late effects. And what is certainly badly missing is mingling time, having us all together here. And I hope that maybe next year or whenever we will have time to meet in Essen and have the chance to invite all of you. Next slide. To the big Ruhr area, which is a huge metropole, but also has its nice and green parts. And with this, I hand over to Kettering.
Thank you very much. And I'll be very quick because we are right on time. And I will just share a few housekeeping or Zoom keeping notes. As you've seen, that the agenda is very tight. So please, please, please stick to your timeframes as far as possible. We just received the information that this meeting is accredited for CME points, which is, I think, very good information. I want you to know that the sessions are being recorded and we will publish them online, not publicly, but probably in a closed website after the meeting. And we will, of course, inform you as soon as they are online. We would also ask you to mute yourselves when you're not speaking yourselves. Again, we would like to ask you to be aware of the timings. The time for questions and discussions is rather limited, but we'll try to have some discussions. Please do ask your questions after the presentations, and please use the hand symbol or the chat function for your questions.